ओम तव कथामृतं तप्त जीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमंगलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये दुरिदा जना। So we were discussing the topic of Ashwini Kumar Datta's conversation. The topic was Ashwini Kumar had written a letter to M, sending his reminiscences, whatever he remembered. So he is talking about a day when he visited Sri Ramakrishna, and he says, the last time I visited him, this is about his last meeting with Sri Ramakrishna, what happened on that day. So the description is given like this. The last time I visited him, a day you mentioned in the 3rd volume, I went with the headmaster of my school. So he's referring to the 3rd volume, section 16, 3rd volume of the Gospel. Bengali Gospel has 5 volumes. So in the 3rd volume, M has mentioned about that incident. He has recorded in his own way, but Ashwini Kumar met him with the headmaster of his school. So he says, I went with the headmaster of my school. It was just after he had passed his BA. You met him the other day. I mean, he's telling M that you have met him. As soon as Ramakrishna saw him, he said, where have you found him? Where have you found him? He's a very fine fellow. So we all know Sri Ramakrishna had that knack of trying to understand the characteristics or the spiritual nature of a person just by looking at him. He had a kind of intuition. He could see through that whole personality of that person and could evaluate him, judge him, and then find out whether he was made of some spiritual stuff. So as soon as Sri Ramakrishna saw him, he said, where have you found him? He is a very fine fellow. So he is coming for the first time, the headmaster of Ashwini Kumar's school, and he had just passed his BA. That means he was a very young man, maybe in his early 20s. And Sri Ramakrishna appreciates and says, what a wonderful person you have brought. Then he said, Sri Ramakrishna said, brother, you are a lawyer. You are very clever. Lawyers were supposed to be very clever, and in those days, when the British was ruling India, the ambition of every young man was to become a lawyer or to become a clerk, a high position in those days. That was the height of the youth's ambition. They could not go beyond that, or they have to do some business. But normally, as far as jobs are concerned, the lawyer's job was supposed to be very lucrative. And they were supposed to be very clever, unless one was very clever in arguments and all. So Sri Ramakrishna says, just jokingly says, brother, you are a lawyer. You are very clever. Can you give me some of your cleverness? Your father came here the other day, was here for 3 days. So if the conversation is going on, then Ashwini Kumar asked him, how did you find him? I mean, his father. When Sri Ramakrishna told Ashwini Kumar that your father had come here. So then he says, oh, he's a good man. But how did you find him? Then he said, he's a good man, but sometimes he talks nonsense. That means Sri Ramakrishna was not very happy with all the conversations he had with Ashwini Kumar's father. So he's telling him, and he was very frank about it. Whatever he felt about a person, he would praise him if he found him to be of some spiritual stuff, or he would just make fun. So Ashwini Kumar was also wise, and because he was clever, because he was a lawyer, he cleverly suggests to Sri Ramakrishna, knock off some of his nonsense the next time you see him. I mean, perhaps Ashwini Kumar also knew that his father would be talking sometimes irrelevant things. So he is requesting Sri Ramakrishna, next time he comes, please knock some of his nonsense. I also know, perhaps he also knew. So Sri Ramakrishna smiled a little and I said, please give him some special instruction. Then he said, do you know Hriday Mukhopadhyay? So he changes the topic. When Ashwini Kumar requested Sri Ramakrishna that please give him some special instruction so that he can improve, because he agreed with Sri Ramakrishna's observation that he sometimes talks nonsense also. Then I said, your nephew, I only know him by name. Thakur then says, Hriday used to say, uncle, he was not very familiar with Hriday, though he was a familiar figure for most of the people who used to come. But whenever these conversations were going on, you will find Hriday was busy with his other duties. And he was very particular that he would come only if Sri Ramakrishna needed him. He was very good at serving Sri Ramakrishna, but somehow he felt all the discussions which were going on not to his interest. He was interested in other worldly matters. So he was perhaps not there. When most of these devotees, if you see the conversations, you will hardly find Hriday being there, or even if he was there, he would just walk away. So he smiled a little and he said, do you know Hriday Mukhopadhyay? Then Ashwini Kumar I said, your nephew, I know him only by name. So till then, he had not seen Hriday. That means Hriday was not frequenting the the conversations which took place in the gospel. You will hardly find Hriday there. So I said, your nephew, I know him only by name. So that means Ashwini Kumar, though he has come several times, he had no occasion or chance to meet Hriday. Then Thakur says, he's trying to tell why he referred to Hriday. Because Hriday used to say, that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying now, uncle, don't say everything you have to say all at once. Why should you repeat the same things over and over again? Now, this was Hriday's opinion. He believed that whenever he came, Sri Ramakrishna would be talking the essentials of spiritual life. And when you say essentials of spiritual life, he cannot change. There was no other way but to speak the same things again and again. What is truth is truth. So truth does not change. You can't just sugarcoat it or tell something else. You have to tell the truth very frankly in a very straightforward manner. So he says, why do you repeat these things again and again? But because Hriday felt that if Sri Ramakrishna told new things, more new people will be attracted. He was more interested in how important the people are, how wealthy they are, how influential they are, so that he can somehow manage to get something out of them. He was not interested if the person is spiritual or not. But Sri Ramakrishna's interest was totally different. If he found that a person does not have spiritual inclination, he may be the wealthiest person, but he would tell him on his face. And that person perhaps would not come back. If he is so worldly minded, he would not be inclined to come back if Sri Ramakrishna found him to be of no spiritual stuff. So, but Hriday's attitude was different. He felt that if Sri Ramakrishna tells the same things again and again, people want novelty. They want to hear about spiritual things for the novelty of it, not because they want to learn spirituality or they are sincere about putting those things into practice, to experiencing the truths which are there. But Sri Ramakrishna believed that a truth is a truth. Even if it is necessary, he has to repeat it thousands of times. So if you see the gospel, very often you will find 4 or 5 things which are very important. First is Nirjanvas. Now, perhaps Hriday was hearing, whenever people come, he talks about Nirjanvas, and that was not to his liking. He was a social person. He wanted to mix with everybody. So he used to say, if you say everything at once, because Sri Ramakrishna was very particular that he used to give a comprehensive advice to everybody. He did not stop with just one piece of advice, saying that nirjan was solitude. But after what? After solitude, what? Just solitude is not enough. So have satsang. If satsang is not enough, then you have to, if just satsang was not enough, then he would say that you have to take the name of the Lord, and then finally he would say Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, and then how to work in the world, Karma Yoga. So there are 4 or 5 things, essential things, which he used to repeat very often. But Hriday did not like that. He said, if you repeat the same thing, then the new people will not come. They'll think, oh, this is what we heard last time. But he did not realize it's not what he repeats again and again that is important. The force behind it, the power behind the spoken word was so powerful that even if for some people it was necessary to be told repeatedly certain things so that they go deep into the consciousness. The intention of Sri Ramakrishna was, if you just tell him once, perhaps that person may take casually. But ideal guru, as he described last time, the Uttam Guru is one who again and again, Holy Mother described that in the Gospel of Holy Mother, we discussed that a Uttam Guru would persist and tell the same things again and again. So Thakur here is upset when he came and Hriday came and told him, why do you say the same things over and over again? He said, what does it matter to you? These, these, um, these are my words. I may repeat them 1,000,000 times. What is that to you? So Sri Ramakrishna got irritated by this constant advice of Hriday, who, not knowing why Sri Ramakrishna was speaking the way he was, why he was repeating again and again, without knowing, he just comes and tells. So Sri Ramakrishna says, I may repeat 1,000,000 times. What is it to you? Because for Hriday, he thought it made a huge difference. If Sri Ramakrishna told new things, then newer and newer people will be coming to him, would come to him, attracted by his intellect. But Sri Ramakrishna was not like that. Even if the few people came, but unless they were sincere, and if they were sincere, then he insisted on giving the same advice again and again, so that it gets imprinted in the consciousness of the people who are hearing it. So that is very important. So punaravrutti, they say in scriptures, there is no punaravrutti dosha. Punaravrutti dosha means there is no defect dosha if you repeat certain things. If you repeat a thing which is important, even if you repeat 100 times, if it is essential for your spiritual welfare, then there's no wrong, there is no dosha if you repeat. Maybe you learn a few things, but those things are fundamental. They change the way you live, they change the attitude of yours towards life, and they make a huge difference in your life. So Sri Ramakrishna said this, and he quoted Hriday, saying that Hriday told me not to repeat the same things, but I scolded him and I told him, you don't worry. These are my words. What I feel is right. I'll repeat 100 times, 1,000,000 times. It doesn't matter. So Ashwini Kumar, who was there, he smiled and said, quite right, quite right. So he agreed that what Sri Ramakrishna says, he understood the real intention of Sri Ramakrishna in repeating certain quotes, certain things, certain teachings, certain parables, because he found these are very essential. Without that, your spiritual life does not even begin. So after some time, he sat down and repeating Om, Om, he began to sing. Dive deep, O mind, into the ocean of beauty. Doob, 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 Roop Shagore, Amar Mon. That is a beautiful song, Kabir. So singing a couplet or two and repeating dive deep, that is a unique feature of Sri Ramakrishna. He never just, after some time, he began to sit down and started repeating Om, Om, Om. So that calmed down his mind. You see, just before this, he showed some irritation And but then he first calmed down the mind, and then he thought, what what is the fun in just quoting Hriday? What does Hriday know about spirituality? So he just calmed himself down and demonstrated to Ashwini Kumar what diving deep into the ocean of Satchidananda is. So, singing that song, just 2 lines of the couplet or 2, not the whole song, Sri Ramakrishna dived deep. Dived deep means he went into Samadhi. The Samadhi over, he began to pace up and down, and he was wearing a dhoti. Normally, he was not very particular about the cloth which he wore. It was just tied around his waist. It was not very neatly. He never had a desire to dress and appear to be very tip top and nicely attired and all those things. So whatever piece of cloth he got, he just wrapped around him, and he did not even bother whether his body was fully covered or whether his coat was there. So at the end of it trailed on the ground and other hung loose. My companion and I began to nudge other and whisper, "He's wearing his dhoti nicely." But in a little while he said, "Away, you rag of cloth." And then he was not bothered how the dhoti looked. So then he suddenly, bringing an umbrella and a walking stick from the northern side of the room, he asked, "Are these yours, this umbrella and the walking stick?" I replied, means Ashwini Kumar replied, "No, sir." And he immediately said, "I already knew that. Just by looking at an umbrella and walking stick, I can judge a man. Surely these belong to that fellow who swallowed my words without understanding them." So you see the wonderful sensitivity of Sri Ramakrishna. The wonderful sensitivity, even by looking at the objects, your possessions, he could judge and leave alone judging a person by looking at him. Sometimes he used to weigh the hands, he used to see the features, he used to say the way a person looks, and many things he used to say about that particular person. And he used to say that I can judge a person by looking at a person. I can judge him. I can see his samskara, see his characteristics as if I see objects inside a glass cupboard. A cupboard which is made of glass, you can see through it. So he could see through the minds of people, and you could judge, not only see through the minds of people, but also could judge a person by the objects he carried. This is something wonderful. So he says, I already knew that, because he knew Ashwini Kumar was a great devotee. Later on, he wrote that famous Bhakti Yoga. So he knew Ashwini Kumar would not be carrying these items. Somehow he had that intuitive way of understanding if this stick and the umbrella belongs to you. Then he says, "No, looking at an umbrella and walking, I can judge a man. Surely these belong to that fellow who swallowed my words without understanding them." So just before that, a person who had come and was not very attentive or did not have any spiritual stuff, he had perhaps come. And because he saw the possessions of that person who was so much attached to worldly things, only such a person who had those characteristics could carry these items, the stick and all. Maybe it was very expensive. So people would like to make a show of their walking stick and umbrella. They would not buy just a stick which would serve its purpose. They would buy something which is very attractive to look. So they are so much concerned about their power, their prestige, their status in society. So he knew that Ashwini Kumar was not of the type who will have these things. But the person who came just before him and who would not even understand the gist of what Sri Ramakrishna would tell or explain, he says perhaps it belongs to him. After a while, he sat on the northern end of his cot. "Do you consider me to be uncivilized?" Because the way he was dressing and the cloth was not properly tied or worn by Sri Ramakrishna. So he says modern people feel that if I dress like this or if I live like this, people think I am not a very civilized person. Sri Ramakrishna was very simple and frank. He said, Ashwini Kumar said, no, no, you are very civilized. Why do you ask this? I mean, he is asking Sri Ramakrishna. Thakur says, well, Shivnath and others like him think of me as uncivilized. When they come, I have to somehow wrap myself in this dhoti properly. Do you know Girish Ghosh? So Sri Ramakrishna says, okay, so you don't bother if I just wear this dhoti the way, whichever way I like. But Shivnath and others who are very meticulous, they think it's the height of good manners to be well dressed. So they don't like and they don't consider me as civilized. They think of me as uncivilized. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna also, like a child, is so simple that he says, knowing if Keshav Sen or this Shivnath and all come, he immediately becomes conscious and dresses properly. But to those people who know Sri Ramakrishna very well, who are very close and who would not judge him by his clothes or the way he is dressed, with them he was very free. Then he asked a question, uh, do you know Girish Ghosh? Then Ashwini Kumar asked, which Girish Ghosh? The one who runs a theatre. So Girish Ghosh was uh, a great devotee of Thakur and such a wayward person, though he was a very talented person, the founder of that Star Theatre which used to enact dramas. Some of the dramas were really good. They were about Chaitanya and all those people. But Sri Ramakrishna was very keen and he used to very often ask, do you know this person, that person, and then try to find out how much capacity the other person has to judge another devotee, whether he has understood, because very often we judge each other and our judgment falls short of the mark. We judge superficially. Sri Ramakrishna had different ways. Many people did not like Girish Ghosh because he was always used to drink. People judge other people by certain parameters which they think are important for them. But Sri Ramakrishna could see people as if he saw the mind through a glass cupboard. He used to see objects as if a person can see objects inside the glass cupboard. He used to see the contents of the mind and the characteristic, the spiritual capacity, everything by looking at a person. And he did not judge them superficially, and he did not expect others also to just be hasty in judging somebody. As Jesus famously said in the Bible, judge not that ye be not judged. So if you don't want God to judge you for your good or bad deeds, then you should not also judge other people. If you start judging other people, making comments and deciding who is what and how one should behave, then you will be subject to that same judgment. That is what Jesus wants to say. So also Sri Ramakrishna, he says, people do not know. If they know, then they can judge. Only God can judge. A person of wisdom can judge because they don't see the superficial behavior or superficially. They don't judge a person superficially. They try to find out. Sri Ramakrishna had that capacity. So Ashwini Kumar, he said, the one who runs a theatre, because he was famous for his theatre. Thakur says, yes. Then Ashwini Kumar says, I have never seen him, but I know his name. Then Thakur says, contrary to all the popular opinion about Girish Ghosh, though he was talented and everybody thought he was given to drunken ways, used to drink a lot and perform, and he was not considered to be a civilized, I mean, in the sense, not intellectually civilized, but he was considered to be a person who did not observe all the social etiquettes, and people never thought he was a good man. But Thakur says he is a good man. Then, but Ashwini Kumar had heard certain things, characteristics about Sri Ramakrishna, about Girish Ghosh. So he says, I hear that he drinks. Does he? So according to him, if a person drinks, then he should not be good. But Sri Ramakrishna had other parameters. He knew that this drinking and all those things are temporary. They may not stick to it. His faith in God, his faith in his guru, his faith in the mantra, or his faith in his self-surrender. He did not even practice any mantra. He had a spirit of self-surrender, and that made him intensely devoted to his master, to whom he gave the power of attorney. And that is how Sri Ramakrishna raised his spiritual consciousness. So Thakur is defending him. He says, let him drink, let him. How long will he continue? I mean, Sri Ramakrishna was so confident that he knew there was some inherent spiritual quality which was covered by some kind of aberration in his behavior. But as soon as the right time comes, Girish would give up all these things. So he says, let him drink. Why are you so much upset that he is drinking? He gets drunk. A day may come when he will give up all those habits. Then he says, do you know Narendra? So Sri Ramakrishna asking Ashwini Kumar, do you know Narendra? Then I means he says, Ashwini Kumar says, no sir. Then Thakur says, I would like you to meet him. He has passed his BA and hasn't married. So this was one criteria which Sri Ramakrishna used to ask. It looks a bit strange. And when M came for the first time, Sri Ramakrishna asked him, are you married? So, and the way he asked, M was a bit shocked. He said, what is wrong? Is marriage something abnormal? But Sri Ramakrishna's intention was different. He was concerned that people, when they have good samskaras, and if particularly like Narendra, he would have been very much shocked if had Narendra been forced to marry. So he says he has passed his BA, which was a big degree in those days, and still hasn't married. Because it was a fashion in those days to marry off young youths even before they completed their graduation. And they would be married to young girls. Child marriage was so common. And Sri Ramakrishna did not like that. He said, what is this? Before even a person can stand on his own feet, he is married off and he is bound. So he seems to be praising Narendra. And then Ashwini Kumar said, very well, then I shall meet him. So hearing Sri Ramakrishna praise him, he said, I will meet him. Then Thakur is not the one who is going to let him go so easily. He is very keen that like-minded devotees meet with each other. There is some kind of satsang. Then he says, today there will be kirtan. Kirtan is a type of song which is accompanied with some instruments like khol, kartal, and many other instruments. And people also dance to the tune of the kirtan. So he says, today there will be a kirtan at Ram Datta's house. Ramchandra Datta, who was a householder disciple who lived in Kakurgachi, he was Sri Ramakrishna's disciple, one of the early disciples, householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. He says, there will be kirtan at Ram Datta's house. You will meet him there. Please go there this evening. Then I means Ashwini Kumar says, all right. Then Thakur says, will you go? You must definitely go. Sri Ramakrishna was very keen that if he tells someone something to somebody, then they have to follow it. They should not say, I will go and then not do it. That's why once or twice he corrected Narendranath. When Narendra said, I will come, he said, don't say I will come. Say, I will try to come. Because if you can't come, then it will not be an untruth. You'll still be speaking the truth. So always try to speak in such a way that you can, other people can depend on your words. If you say, I will try to come, that means I may or may not come. He says, how do you know that you will be able to come? So you say, I will try to come. So also, he says, will you go? He's asking him again. First he said, yes, all right. But then he said, you must definitely go. Then Ashwini Kumar felt a little embarrassed. He said, would I disobey your order? I will certainly go. So he had so much faith and devotion and said, if you have told me to go, I will go. You don't have to bother that I'll not keep my word. So he says, would I disobey your order? I'll certainly go. Then he showed pictures in his room and asked me, means asked Ashwini Kumar, is a picture of Buddha available? So in those days it was so difficult. Pictures were printed and you had to go to search for many pictures. They were not so easily available. So Ashwini Kumar says, yes, I hear it's available. Though he might not have had a picture of Buddha, but he said, I hear it is available. Then he says, Thakur says, can you bring one for me? So he wanted Ashwini Kumar to bring a picture of Buddha which he wanted to keep. If you see, even today, Dakshineshwar, there are so many photos which were there at the time of Sri Ramakrishna life. He used to live in that room. So the cot and many things, including the photos of Buddha and others, which some of the devotees, he sometimes expressed a desire to keep a photograph of a particular deity or a particular person, so or a prophet. So he must have asked for Buddha and he said, bring me one. Then Ashwini Kumar said, all right, I'll bring one the next time I come. I never saw him after that day. I was not lucky enough to sit at his feet again. That means the next time, though he had promised that he'll bring, but Sri Ramakrishna passed away before that. So it took a long time for him perhaps to plan a visit, and by that time Sri Ramakrishna passed away. So he could not fulfill Sri Ramakrishna's desire of bringing a photo of Buddha which he wanted to keep in his room. So that evening, so Ashwini Kumar regrets that he told me such a simple thing and I could not give him. I never saw him after that day. I was not lucky enough to sit at his feet again. That means Sri Ramakrishna must have entered into Mahasamadhi and Ashwini Kumar would not get a chance to meet him after this meeting. This was the last conversation he has recorded. Then that evening he went as he had promised. He went to Ram Babu's house where he met Narendra. As Sri Ramakrishna had told him, you meet Narendra. He's an unmarried boy. He's passed his BA. And this was towards the end of his life. And he saw so much of promise in Narendra. So he wanted many people, especially the senior devotees, to know about Narendra, to get some inspiration from him. He knew, of course, through his intuition that he was a great soul. So he wanted to introduce Narendra to as many people as possible so they get some kind of inspiration from him. So he met Narendra. Of course, it was not very easy to just mix with Swami Vivekananda. Narendra was though he used to come very often, he was attracted by Sri Ramakrishna and his message. So when he went to Ram Babu's house, where he was invited by Sri Ramakrishna, he said, there will be Kirtan, you come. So he had agreed, but he saw Narendra there. Thakur was sitting in a room resting against a bolster. So he was sitting perhaps on a cot with a bolster with Narendra on his right. I was in front of them. He asked Narendra to talk to me. This is one thing we'll find very common in Sri Ramakrishna's life. He used to teach indirectly by asking two people to converse and then he will interrupt them, or maybe after the conversation is over, he'll give his own views about that. And so without unknowingly, people in the course of their conversation among themselves, they would be corrected at some places. So Sri Ramakrishna believed in this type of teaching. He used to always say, when two devotees came, please talk to each other. If Naren came, he would say, please talk to Girish, like that. So he asked Narendra, you please talk to this Ashwini Kumar, because he respected or he loved Ashwini Kumar. So he knew these good people, the forces of good should come together. So he was trying to bind all these people, devotees and lay devotees and monks and householders, everybody into a big sangha or family. Already Sri Ramakrishna had begun his ministration. So, but Narendra that day was not in a good mood. He says, I have a bad headache today. I don't feel like talking. So Ashwini Kumar felt a little sad that he could not talk to Narendra. Never mind, I said. We'll talk another day. That talk we had in Almora in the month of May or June. So here, Ashwini Kumar, as part of the gospel, it's not just a conversation with Sri Krishna that he has recorded, but because Sri Krishna told him to meet Narendra, he is referring to a teaching, a conversation he had with Narendranath in Almora in the month of May or June of 1897. This was just after, perhaps, Swami Vivekananda's return. I don't think it was after his return. I think there is some problem with the date because, yeah, Swami Vivekananda came in the month of January. So it is possible, this date is very much probable. In May or June, he would have been to Almora because Swamiji came and landed on the Indian shores. In fact, he landed in uh, Sri Lanka first, and then from there he came from Colombo and other places he visited, and then he came to India. Before he came, he landed in Sri Lanka on 26th January of 1897. So incidentally, that is the Republic Day of India as well. So on 26th January, first set his foot on the Indian subcontinent, and he maybe within a few months, there is a book known as Lectures from Colombo to Almora. So Colombo was the first talk he gave, and Almora is perhaps the last few talks he gave in Almora. So that those were a series of talks where Swami Vivekananda traveled the length and breadth of the country, giving the wonderful message of Vedanta to all. So there was a talk in Almora in the month of May or June, that is January 26th he came, and then after visiting all the other places, went to Kolkata, he was given a big reception, and then from there, with some of his Western disciples, he went to Almora. So Thakur's wish had to be fulfilled, though it took 12 years. Oh, what a happy time those few days in Almora with Swami Vivekananda were. Sometimes it was that day he could not, Naren had a headache, so he could not talk. But Swami Sri Krishna wanted that both of them should talk. So finally he gets a chance and he says, Thakur's wish was fulfilled. Though it took 12 years. So after 12 years after the passing of Sri Krishna in 1886, 1897, he finally got a chance to meet and talk with Swami Vivekananda at Almora. Sometimes it was in his house, at other times in mine. And one day I was with him alone on a hilltop. I didn't see him again after this meeting. It was to fulfill Thakur's wish that I was able to meet him at that. So this meeting was also brief. And he met Naren, and he shows that how Thakur had wished. So even if it is after 12 years, Thakur saw to it that we both of us meet. But he has not recorded those conversations for obvious reasons. wanted only the reminiscences of Sri Krishna, not of. So Swamiji did not bother to. Ashwini Kumar did not bother to share Swamiji's other reminiscences. He might have spoken something because he says finally Thakur's wish was fulfilled. That means he was also perhaps waiting for a period of about 12 years to meet Narendra again. Because during the first meeting, he said, I have a headache, I'm not able to focus and talk with you. So now Ashwini Kumar concludes. Next time we will start with the second book, second Kathamrut, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the second, the Bengali Sri Ramakrishna Kathamruta Bhag 2, the Bhag 2, part 2. So that we will discuss later, but right now, Sri Ramakrishna also, he says Sri Ramakrishna also I saw only 4 or 5 times. So he's just recapitulating what he has discussed with Sri Ramakrishna in the brief 4 or 5 conversations he had with him. But even during that short time, I felt as if we were as if we had been classmates. How frankly we talked. Now, this is one unique thing. If Sri Ramakrishna found someone to be very spiritual, he would get very intimate with them. No matter how important or how less important or how prominent that person was, he never bothered about the background. Whereas Hriday was very keen to know if a person is rich, whether he had property or whether he was an influential person. Sri Ramakrishna did not care. If he could look through the personality of a person and he found him to be spiritually elevated or spiritually, potentially spiritual, then he would be very close to him and encourage him and ask him to come again and again, as he did in the case of Narendra. So I felt we were as close as if we had been classmates. How frankly we talked. The moment I left him, I said to myself, "Oh my God, what a man I have been with." So after he left, after every meeting, you used to feel, what, oh my God, what a wonderful person I met. Maybe the meetings were few and only 4 or 5, but he says, whatever I saw, whatever I got from him during these few days has sweetened my entire life. So he's coming to the conclusion, to the end of his reminiscences, and he concludes by saying that whatever I've learned from him, the few days has sweetened my entire life. With enormous care, I have treasured that soft smile, that showering of divine words in my heart. Now, about Sri Ramakrishna's smile, he used to, it's mentioned in the Great Master, the biography, the most authentic biography of Sri Ramakrishna, that one day he had a vision of Sita with a beautiful heavenly smile. He had visions of many gods and goddesses. He had vision of Hanuman, and one day he saw Hanuman suddenly coming and uh, bowing down before Sita, and then he saw the wonderful smile of Sita. And the biographer Swami Shardanandji says in the Great Master, he says, this smile of Sita, Sri Ramakrishna told us, never, it was as it were transferred to Sri Ramakrishna. He used to have that same kind of divine smile. So, with that soft divine smile, which Ashwini Kumar saw, he says, with enormous care, I've treasured that soft smile. These are the old samskaras, the old memories, smritis, not samskaras, the smritis, which have become samskaras in the mind of Ashwini Kumar. And that soft smile, that shower of divine words in his heart is what he's trying to recollect again and again. So, with that, we come to the conclusion of Ashwini Kumar's reminiscences. And then he ends with the last 4 lines. He says, brother means he's addressing it to M, because this is a letter he wrote, and he's considering M also to be his brother, because he was very happy when M compiled the different volumes. We are just finishing the first volume now. We'll be starting the second volume in our next class. So he ends by saying, he concludes this letter, which is part of the first volume of the Gospel, where he's concluding, M has just given this letter, published this letter as it is, because he felt that Ashwini Kumar's reminiscences, how he saw Thakur, what did he hear, this will be a wonderful addition, because of its authenticity, and more importantly, because of the wonderful devotion Ashwini Kumar had, and the appreciation that's why he says, brother, it is the inexhaustible wealth of a poor person. A grain of bliss flowing from that smile has brought gladness even to distant America. Through Swami Vivekananda, that same message has gone all over the world. That is what Ashwini Kumar is saying. So even a poor person like me, what an inexhaustible wealth we have got from him. Maybe 4 or 5 meetings, but his contact and his words, his reminiscences which he has given here, whatever he remembers, these are a great inexhaustible, like some inexhaustible treasure or wealth for a poor person. So he says, thinking of this, I am overwhelmed again and again. If it is so with me, how fortunate you are. So here he is trying to say that how fortunate you are. I just could record only 5 or 6 meetings, and that is because of you asked me. I am trying to recollect and share it with you. But what about you? You have written the 5 volumes of the gospel. And if I am so fortunate, how fortunate you are, because you have meticulously recorded so many conversations of Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel. So that will be discussed in the second part. So next time we will be uh, starting discussion. There is a short life of the author which we will not take up. We will go to volume number 2, and I will be sharing this volume number 2, the PDF of this file, because I had shared all the 5 volumes. Sometime I don't remember if all of you have that. The first volume, of course, I have given you. I will share the second volume so that if somebody wants to read it, they can read it even on the mobile. I'll just share it on WhatsApp as a file attachment. So we will begin the second chapter or second part, the English translation of the second original Bengali Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrut, as they were arranged by M. M had arranged in a particular way for reasons best known to himself, and for or maybe for convenience, but we will be discussing discussing the second volume, which was translated, which is the exact English translation of the second volume of the Ramakrishna Kathamrut. It was done by, as I told you, Srima Trust in Chandigarh, where they took upon the task of, because the English version previously by Nikhilanandji had changed the order of the book and combined all the 5 volumes of the Bengali gospel with a lot of editing. They had shortened it, they had abridged it a little bit, and combined the volumes, changed the order, arranged all the conversation chronologically, and published in 1942 for the first time in English language, the whole gospel. But many interesting things are missing from that, because Nikhilanandji knew that it was meant for Western readers, so he did not believe in giving all the details. But this English edition, the second part of which we will be discussing in our next gospel class, is arranged by Master Master himself, and there are so many appendixes and so many footnotes and other things. Not only footnotes, but some extra material which has been partially edited a little bit in the uh, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which was uh, published by Swami Nikhilanandji in America. So we will be taking the second volume, and we will start from the first page of the second volume in our next class. So if there are some questions, I would like to just see. Yeah, as of now, there are no questions. So today we managed to conclude the first part of the gospel, and uh, next Sunday, hopefully, we will start with the second part. And as I said, I will share that the text of the whole book, which has been converted into PDF, so that you can read on whichever device you people have. Yeah. Now, okay. So I will take your leave unless there is a question to be answered. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.